Hi Cousin Donald, how are you again? Well, it's Infallible Arch and the SWIL Team 6 from Australia, your informal transition team and focus group. Remember that if 100 or 200 million people follow you in the US on TV when you do something, there may be several billion worldwide, and it's probably worthwhile looking at the way they see things, because your CEO in 3 weeks' time of the biggest business in the world, the United States. And CEO of any large business takes their executives from anywhere, don't they? I believe that Mercedes-Benz and other big firms in Germany, when they have meetings, have their meetings in English, because, not meaning it as a pun, it's the lingua franca of the world, it's the world language. So it's probably worthwhile picking some of your executives from elsewhere. Probably worthwhile looking at what other countries do better than the USA. For instance, Finland, its educational system is marvellous. Obviously South Korea's educational system is marvellous. All those sort of things. I mean, that where previous presidents, some of whom were brilliant, tend to look entirely within the US for solutions, in such a multipolar, interconnected world as today, we think you've got to look elsewhere and accept any advice from anywhere, so long as it's logical and practical. And the stuff we're talking about, we think is logical and practical, because we're all senior people, we all do creative type work, and we all try to conserve money where we can. It's just that you would be exactly the same, I would think. Now, with regards to my proposal, or our proposal, that you should take the free nations of the world, leave the UN alone, let it percolate on, and form an association of free nations with a defence pact, the United Free Nations Defence Pact. It's a defence pact. Now, traditionally, any nation can have a defence pact with anyone else, so it doesn't impact on the United Nations at all. Now, this defence pact couldn't impact on the other defence pacts the 44 free nations have, because no free nations have declared war on each other since World War II. It's just, what you're putting together is exactly like an exclusive club at one of your resorts. Do you want nations that execute people summarily in it? Of course you don't. Do you want nations in it with a population eat grass like North Korea? Of course you don't. Now, what we're saying to you to do, Donald, is precisely what you've done in the USA. You're a bottom-up man, not a top-down stuff is obsolete. You're a bottom-up man. That Make America Great movement has lifted America. It's energised America. And you can energise America even further with creative thought. You can energise the world, the free nations of the world, with creative thought. Because the stupidity of US policy in the past has been trying to lead the whole world. It's just dumb. The other stupid thing about US policy, and British and many other good nations, is to distribute billions of dollars to all these crooked nations, and the money just goes bang, crooked nation, bang, Swiss bank. So the UN needs to pull it, the USA needs to say, right, who do we belong with? We belong with the free nations of the world. Righto, leave the UN alone, let it percolate on, let more minor officials go there, and if countries have lowered America's prestige by the way that happened to President Obama, let them go to the UN. That's their playpen. Let them play happily there. You have better things to do and more forward-looking things to do, and this is a brilliant idea whose time has come. Now, why I said you should have an old army base somewhere in the east of the USA is that if you form something that looks like compared to the UN in New York, you'll have another throttling bureaucracy. If you have something as Spartan as an army base, it says we're really sensible people, and as soon, of course, as you form that like an exclusive club, the door will be kicked down by other nations wanting to join. There'll be very shaky nations in the Middle East who can only join if they're true democracies. Now, this is where the brilliance of the concept comes in. You take all that money that you and the 44 free nations have been chucking at nations and just wasting it. You take that money as a special fund within the free nations, and that is used to help other nations become free. These are the nations that are a bit dodgy, a bit iffy, and there are many of them, there are probably 50 of them. And by using that money and giving them help from the true democracies like Norway or Sweden or Denmark, you can bring them into your camp. Now, what we're saying to you is, Donald, you're building a wall to define the United States, and that's clever. Every country has boundaries, right? But what you need to do to make America safe and the world safe is to build a virtual wall around the free nations of the world and say to everyone else, get nicked. We're not sending any money, we're not doing any favours. If you want to deal with us, go and see our reps at the United Nations. We've got bigger and better things to do. Because as soon as you form that, as I say, other nations will be desperate to get in, and then you might need to take some really smart people like David Cameron and any other international person you consider really smart, and give them a job as Special Ambassador for Freedom for the Free Nations. Not some tired bureaucrat within it, because what you want to do with this Free Nation thing, leave it in the army base, leave it Spartan. Then the giant bureaucracy that loves the nightlife in New York can't build up. There's nothing charming about a military base, and it's the perfect place to start this off and keep it there. Because these nations, you'll release energy in the free nations, and these free nations will then say, wow, well, why don't we consider laws that may apply to all of us? Why don't we consider things like doctors from any of the countries can work in any other countries, provided they pass the qualifications? What you will be doing internationally is what you're doing in the USA is, as Warren Buffett said, a rising tide lifts all boats. And the more free nations you get, the bigger the wall around the free nations, the more powerful you are. Can you imagine any aggressor attacking 44 free nations of the world? That's about 65% or 70% of the world's GNP. Can you imagine them crippling themselves? I just can't imagine that. And also, the spin-offs are, China can stop pretending it's got any enemies. I mean, nobody with 1% of China's GNP is going to attack another. And nor can Russia. Russia has enormous problems, as you know, and they can devote far less money to arms. So it actually benefits all of them. And it also means if Iran fires one missile against Israel, or Hezbollah or one of its subsidiaries does so, bang, the Iron Curtain comes down on Iran. It's game over for Iran. It's poverty and a hopeless future. And North Korea, if they fire one more missile in the direction of Japan, bang, not only the poor part of the country will be eating grass, so will the rest. So this is a plan that I think, and my friends think, and we've discussed it, we think it's brilliant, because you're using the economic levers of the world possessed by the 44 free nations to crush any aggressor nation. And I think that makes world peace for the indefinite future. And that, Donald, puts you in the pantheon of great American presidents. Washington, the Revolutionary War, Lincoln freeing the slaves, and the incomparable FDR. Donald, you are walking in the shoes of great men. Do not let yourself be normalised by all those dumb advisors. Be yourself, be creative, be the smartest executive in the world running the biggest corporation, and listen to all ideas, because outsiders often see a society more clearly than the people in it. Thank you. Please give our ideas through to your transition team. We think they're pretty good. Bye.